still so accustomed to idols that when they eat sacrificial food, they think of it as having been sacrificed to a god. Since their conscience is weak, it is defiled. But food does not bring us near to God. We are no worse if we do not eat, no better if we do. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block for the weak. For if someone with a weak conscience sees you with your knowledge eating in an idol's temple, won't that person be emboldened to eat what is sacrificed to idols? So this weak brother or sister for whom Christ died is destroyed by your knowledge. When you sin against them in this way and wound their weak conscience, you sin against Messiah. Therefore, if what I eat causes my brother or sister to fall into sin, I'll never eat meat again, so I will not cause them to fall. Now let me translate. Whose was this? Thank you. This is what Paul is saying. He is saying that if there is meat sacrificed to idols, it means nothing to this piece of meat. But if there are people who still have a tie, like a soul tie, to the idol, let's say they just come out of idolatry, they just accepted the Lord, and there is a pull there, like a spiritual pull there, you better darn well not eat that meat. Because for you, it could be a vice. It could be something that could lure you back into idolatry. And Paul says those who know the God and are unaffected by it have knowledge. They know that there's really no such thing as a God. So go ahead and eat it. But if you're not there, if you're weak, he calls it weak, but that's not meant to be like an insult. It just means that there's a weakness there. And we all have weaknesses. We all have areas that we just got to stay away from this because I'm weak in that area. So if there is still a pull towards that idolatry, stay away from it. And if you, as somebody who has the knowledge, who knows that you can eat this thing and it doesn't affect you, if you eat it in front of your brother who's weak, who does have a pull to that idol, you're sinning against Messiah. Okay? But in the end, that one thing, at the end of the day, there was really nothing wrong with this meat. That's specifically what Paul is saying. That is exactly what Paul is saying. Unless there is a soul tie to it, and if your faith is strong, the meat is harmless. I know people, everybody here knows that I'm a Beatles nut. Everybody here knows I'm a Beatles nut. Thank you, Sue, for singing the Beatles during the praise and worship today.
Yeah, I got that one.
Love, love, love. Thank you. So everybody knows here I'm a Beatles nut. I know a Messianic rabbi who, when he hears the Beatles, it brings him back to his drug days in the 60s when he was getting high on LSD. And it brings him to that place. For him, the Beatles are not kosher. He needs to stay away from it. And if I went there and said, hey! What's a good Beatles song? Trying to think of an obscure one.
All you need is love. All you need is love.
And said, everybody's got something to hide except for me and my monkey. Near. That's an obscure one. Okay. Hey, come on, groove it up slow. If I did that to him, come together. Oh, I can just go off on this. So forget the message. I'll just sing for all the songs. If I did that to him, Paul says, if I did that to him and caused him to stumble, which means to sin, I am sinning against Messiah. I know another Messianic rabbi in North Carolina. He has an American Indian ancestry. And we were at his congregation, and during the praise and worship, he took flags, 2 flags, and was doing this dance to the Lord with these flags. He told me later it comes from his American Indian ancestry. The reason that is kosher for this rabbi is because the linkage to the false god, it has no impact on him. So he can take that cultural expression and wave flags to the Lord. And it's harmless for him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now you may not agree, but you have to agree with Scripture. And Paul is clear. The meat that was sacrificed to idols is okay if you have knowledge. If you are weak, it is not okay for you. That's not about my opinion. That's Paul. There's another example. So the children of Israel, we know they went into Babylon after hundreds of years of sinning, idolatry. After the deliverance with Moses, they had hundreds of years and they were sinning, and the prophets told them, you better stop or you're in trouble. Eventually Babylon comes in, decimates the temple, puts them into exile. And now all of a sudden, we have the Jewish biblical months 1 through 12, which very rarely had even any sort of name. It was normally month 1, month 2, month 3, etc. All of a sudden, the children of Israel started to adopt the Babylonian month names. And even now, we see the 12 months or 12 or 13 months, it depends on the year. The names of the Hebrew months are Babylonian. Not only are they Babylonian, they're the names of Babylonian gods. So you may say, well, that is not holy to do. It's not kosher to do. You shouldn't be doing that. All I have to say is that you can talk to Zechariah, Mordecai, Ezra, Nehemiah, who I think are more righteous than me. It was okay with them because it's mentioned specifically in our Hebrew Bible. I believe that once the linkage, if there's no linkage, it's just a word. It means nothing. Let me ask you this. Who has a pagan symbol in their pocket right now? Anybody? Anybody have any pagan symbols in their pocket right now? Well, if you don't think so, you better not look in your wallet. Because the dollar bill's got it all over it. Are you engaging in paganism if you have a dollar bill with the pyramid and the eye? Are you engaging in paganism? No, you are not. In the name of the Lord, you are not. He's not holding it against you if you have a dollar bill in your pocket because it has pagan symbols on it. Because there's no linkage to the paganism, the religion. It's just a thing. So because of that, I do believe that other cultural expressions will survive the coming of the Lord. Amen. And Indians will do Bollywood dances to the Lord. And it's holy unto Him, independent if the root of it was for Hinduism. That's what I believe, which is really all that matters at the moment.
I'm right behind you. So
now I ask you the question, what about Christmas? Is Christmas a pagan activity, or is it just a European cultural expression that survived because the linkage God willing, because we all know that Christmas has its root in paganism. That is undeniable. If anybody wants to know really when Yeshua was born, I have a full teaching on it. I did it here. He was born during the holiday of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. I have biblical proof of it. If you're ever interested in it, I can take you through it step by step, only using the Bible. But outside of when he was born, we know, it's fact, it's known fact, that December 25th, the holiday of that day, which aligns with the winter solstice, is like the celebration of the sun god. And then there was Saturnalia, which was a Roman festival which took place at that time. We know that these elements came into the celebration of Christmas. That's undeniable fact. And if you have a root in yourself, if you have like a pull, a soul tie with paganism, you better darn well not celebrate it. Because that's what Paul is saying. If you are weak in that area, let's say you have that type of ancestry. Let's say your parents were pagans before you came to the Lord. It may be wise to not celebrate Christmas if there is that linkage. But for me, as a Jewish person, there is zero linkage. I didn't grow up with it. I don't know anything about it. I never celebrated Christmas in my life until I met my Gentile wife. And we were going around singing Christmas carols. There's this one picture on Facebook from 20 years ago when we met. And I'm like this Jewish guy. I don't even know if I believed in the Lord yet. And I'm going around singing Christmas carols. And the look on my face was, oh gosh, if my mother ever sees me, I am so dead.
What are you doing?
But the question is, when a modern day Christian family, setting up their Christmas tree, burning a Yule log, whatever that is. Is that something you burn? Yes. Are they engaging in paganism? Or is it just a harmless cultural expression? In my belief, unless you are weak, and there's a linkage to a pagan god, it is a harmless cultural expression that is not an abomination to the Lord. Because the God that was embedded in this thing is long, long gone from the modern day Christian family. That may not have been the case 2,000 years ago when Constantine and the early church fathers put this thing together. That could have very well been an abomination. But to a modern day Christian, I don't believe, and I want to say that we as Mishkahn David, you can believe anything you want individually, but as a congregation we do not believe that these Christian expressions are an abomination to the Lord. The reason is the God is long since booted out. And for the modern Christian family, who's there exchanging gifts with their kids, there's not a linkage to paganism. And God cares about our hearts. That's what He judges. Our hearts.
God's in everything.
Now, I also say what I've said before here, too. I reserve the right to be wrong about anything. And if God, at the end of this thing, is going to say, put away all these practices,